Recording in progress.
All right, good afternoon. We're going to call the September 3rd meeting of the Site Plan Review Technical Advisory Committee for the City of Portsmouth to order. I'll note that we have a quorum. First item of business is the approval of minutes from August 6th. Any comments, changes, or motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes have been accepted. First item, 100 Durgan Lane, item B under old business has requested to postpone to the next meeting. Item A, we have 635 Sagamore, but I don't see the applicant. So if it's okay with the committee, maybe we'll just move to item A under new business and see if they show up. Since we have a lot of abutters here.
Okay.
I move we take up item B in advance of item A.
Second.
All right, item B, they're postponing, so we'll.
Oh, sorry. Item
All right,
3A instead of item 2A.
Okay. Is that a
Second.
Second. All right. All in favor of that?
Aye.
All right. We'll take up item A, the request of Northeast Credit Union owner and Liberty Mutual Insurance owner for properties located at 100 Borthwick Avenue and 0 Borthwick Avenue, requesting a lot line adjustment to add approximately 4.8 acres to map 240, Lot 3. Said properties are located on Assessor Map 259, Lot 15, and Map 240, Lot 3, and lie within the Office Research District. Who's here? Come on up.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm Jeff Kilberg with Apex Design Build and Brian Jones from Allen & Major. We're here for the work session early last month and went through much of this previously, but just wanted to rehash it. Peter, you can jump to the second slide. Just to give an overall view, 12.77 acre site currently, 47,000 square foot building and change. Current parking has 541 parking spots. We're proposing to essentially annex 264 into Liberty Mutual's existing parking lot site. There's a bridge that's already been built across to that parking lot, as that's been leased to Liberty Mutual for 5+ years at this point. Building was built in 3 phases, as many of you probably do know, 1978, followed by 84 and 2005. And as mentioned, the parking lot is currently leased to Liberty Mutual, and this would give them rightful ownership. They permitted, designed, and built that bridge with coordination in Northeast Credit Union. So that was in the early 2000s that they did that process. You can go to the next one. Just to give an oversight of the building, it's envisioned to be Class B multi-use mixed tenant in the building. There will be plenty of parking spots left over. Remaining would be 277 parking spots. And there will be some medical usage in the building. We ran parking calculations for entire medical usage, and that would only come up to 201 parking spots. So we've built in a nice buffer from that standpoint to go along with the sale of that existing parking lot to Liberty Mutual. Building's well suited for redevelopment, given its layout, and we're envisioning 6 to 7 tenants, in that building in the future. So the plan has been updated to reflect a lot line adjustment instead of a subdivision. We are anticipating preparing everything for the Board of Adjustment meeting, and that will be submitted on 9/18. And the requests ahead of that meeting already connected with Peter Britz earlier, as well as Jillian. So this just gives a depiction of the proposed easement as well as the lot which would be sold to Liberty Mutual and incorporated into their existing lot. I think the biggest questions that came up, from the review, and I just wanted to run through those and propose some responses to those. So the sidewalks to Borthwick Avenue and crossing to the ADA compliant portion, I'm assuming these are the front of the building, right at the entryway, but wanted to get confirmation on that.
There's an existing crosswalk in front of the, not in front of the credit union, but over in front of the parcel that's being, the lot line's changing on it. And I don't know if it gets any usage, but it doesn't comply with current standards for crosswalk design.
You're talking,
It's existing, I don't know if you have an aerial photo, but you can see
yeah,
it on an aerial.
because I looked at the ones in front of the credit union, and those I would definitely say are not compliant.
Yeah, I don't think there's any crosswalks in front of the credit union. The sidewalk maybe, but not a crosswalk.
There's a,
Talking about
there's a crosswalk that comes out from that auxiliary parking lot, goes across to a sidewalk that runs along Borthwick, and then another crosswalk that comes back across
Keep
in
going
front of
south.
100 Borthwick.
Yeah, it's that one right
This.
there. That's what I'm referring to there in the comment, that crosswalk.
Can you go south a little bit more there so we can pick up the actual building?
There's the building. So there's one there.
Yeah, that's that one to the south of the one that Eric is mentioning is non-compliant. I'll take a look at the one that's coming off the auxiliary parking lot and double check on that one. There is a small portion of asphalt on the sidewalk crosswalk that comes in front of 100 Borthwick, and that is non-compliant as well. Second remark was drainage on site must be functioning as originally designed. We had some conversation with Dave DeFosis on the stormwater strategy here. So we're going to be putting together, obviously, a drainage calculation as part of that request. We'll put together a yearly maintenance plan that will be executed and agreed to by Liberty Mutual in that process. So as rightful owner, they'll take over the maintenance plan. And then we're obviously proposing to clean out the existing catch basins and drainage system, as Dave had mentioned. So in that situation, we'll inspect the existing system, and if there's remediations to be made at that point in time, we will address them at that point in time. So that kind of covers a couple of different questions in there, but there is a remark about a boundary survey for Liberty Mutual, and we are intending to do the boundary survey for Liberty Mutual. And that kind of jumps into, it's a little bit further down, but a remark about site plans being needed in this situation. Previously, we had a discussion with the planning group on the need for site plans, and we have a full Alta survey of 100 Borthwick, and that would qualify as a site plan in that situation. We're only intending to do a boundary survey for Liberty Mutual, so we wanted to make sure that accompanies and is okay in that situation to submit as an acceptable site plan.
Right, just the lot that's changing.
Correct. Yep. Is that confirmation that the full Alta survey would be?
Right, we'll need a new survey for this property.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we have a full survey for 100 Borthwick property that outlines all catch basins, light poles, et cetera. Happy to provide that. The variance for the BOA, we discussed that previously, but we'll definitely be applying for that and getting the request in ahead of time of the 9/18 deadline. And then the wetland delineation comment, that actually is on the plan that was submitted, and it is stamped by a wetland scientist as well. So we wanted to get clarification on that because it is shown as delineation on the documentation already.
I think we were just looking for the delineation line, but maybe we just couldn't see it in our review. I know there was a note on it on the plan.
It's marked out with triangles representing the flag locations, and then a dashed line that connects the triangles.
Now I see it.
But there's no report or anything that goes with it?
Would you like a copy of the report?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
We could definitely do that. So I think that answers the majority of the comments and concerns. Just want to make sure that there was nothing else that popped up. Oh, the last, just to reiterate on the sidewalk side, we want to make sure that obviously the variance process goes through on the Board of Adjustment side. So we would propose that being contingent, number one, on the variance process being reviewed and approved.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah, that's
go ahead. Any-
Did he address the drainage?
Yeah, talk through the plan for cleaning, maintenance plan, and then doing a drainage calculation to review the 50-year stormwater.
Open it up for further comments or questions from TAC members?
So the credit union will become a medical use, is that a possibility? But it's not part of this application?
OR zoning does allow medical use, yes. Yep.
I can speak to that. I'm one of the purchasers, Dan Humphrey. We are negotiating leases with tenants, so we don't have anything that we can truly lock in on right now, but that's definitely an intention, given its location of the hospital. Medical would be extremely beneficial to the area and suitable for the building.
And the reason I'm asking is if it did become medical, is there parking requirement? Would they need a CUP or anything for parking? Or?
Well, when they figure out all the uses for that building, we'd have to calculate the parking requirements.
We've been very conservative on the parking estimates. We're confident that we have an excess amount for any use that we could come up with.
Yeah, because it looked like you'd done a parking demand, based on the city's codes for parking requirements, but I didn't know if you'd done like an ITE parking generation to see what actual demand would be rather than code requirements are.
We've done both, just code, yes, we're good, and then also any reasonable expectation, and then considering snow and things like that.
Yes.
Like we're comfortable with what we would have remaining, if that's the thrust of the question.
Yeah.
We're definitely looking out for the total use of the building,
Okay.
not just, trying to accommodate Liberty.
Yeah. The biggest component too is making sure that all the tenants are aligned. It's hard to go in and do, confirm physical calculations if you don't have the actual tenants in place.
I mean, with the use of the parking area by Liberty Mutual, do you even see a need for that crosswalk to the upper one?
There will still be some overflow parking that is attached to that. So if you go back to, as a great example, so Peter, if you can zoom into the auxiliary parking at 100 Borthwick there. So Eric, there is a drive aisle that's kind of, we'll call it middle of this auxiliary parking around the major high voltage electrical poles in the center. That's kind of like delineating point between Liberty Mutual side and what will be left over. So yes, there will definitely be some auxiliary parking there. Do I envision that it will get used a whole lot? That I can't answer without knowing exactly who's going into that building. It would be probably more overflow and staff parking more than anything. But there will still be a parking lot that is owned by, what is 100 Borthwick Avenue.
Yeah, I could see there'd be a need to walk between these, the parking lot and the building. I'm just
Yep.
thinking, is there a need for that crosswalk across Borthwick?
Oh,
Right, get rid of this and then just use this.
Yeah. Because they have that walkway up there that connects to the Liberty Mutual parking lot. And most people parking in this lot would use that connection and then cross up.
If I were to guess, I would guess that Northeastern Credit Union has not been using the crosswalk. They've probably been walking across the grass, if I were to guess.
Yeah. It's just,
We can analyze it
yeah, I
to
mean,
see
if
how
there's not
it,
a need for that crosswalk. Why
Yeah.
don't need to upgrade it and maintain it if there's no need for it.
absolutely. Happy to analyze it and take a look at it.
other comments at this time, before we take any public comment? Anyone here wish to make any comments on this application? Or on Zoom? Let me see. No one's on Zoom. All right, we'll close the public comment portion and back for further discussion.
I think it's, unless other people have other concerns, I think we're ready to send it on with a condition that it get whatever it needs from the Board of Adjustment in terms of a variance or an appeal of the administrative decision. It doesn't need a variance. So I'd recommend approval to the planning board based on a favorable approval at BOA. Say that.
And the comments that were added in the response should be added as requirements.
Right, because you're going to want to see the drainage calculations. And
Yep.
Do you need to see it before it goes to the planning board?
Does not need to do that, but
Okay.
it needs to be conditions of approval,
Okay.
please.
So what we have here
Mhm.
works? Good.
Yes.
All right, that was a motion. Is there,
I will second it based on that.
all right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I'll go see if that.
Oh, I did check my email, and they were stuck at the bridge in Kittery, but that's, that was at 1:59.
So they're on the way.
So, yeah, you can see if,
Joe Coronati was just here.
he was just here? Oh, there he is. All right, we will move back to item A under old business. The request of 635 Sagamore Development LLC owner for property located at 635 Sagamore Avenue, requesting site plan approval for the removal of the existing structures and construction of 4 single-family dwellings on one lot with associated site improvements. Said property is located on the Mass Assessor Map 222, Lot 19, and lies within the Single Residence A district. Who's here to present?
That'd be me and Paige. So my name's Joe Coronati, Jones and Beach Engineers. With me, I have Paige Libby. She's the professional engineer that's been doing the design work on the project. So it has been a little while since we've been here. We've been working on reviews from Altus has been doing a third-party review on stormwater. We've been coordinating that response and doing some field work. There was additional test pits requested, additional, we did some infiltration testing on the property, responding to those comments as well as the initial round of TAC comments that we received. We did receive a letter from Altus dated August 28th, which we have, and we did receive comments from the planning staff and the TAC committee over the weekend, and I think for us, a lot of these things are straightforward and not anything that is a concern or need to really waste too much of your time on. We will submit all the architectural plans, which we have submitted in the past, but we'll submit them on with every submission, and we have submitted a green building statement, but it was probably on the very early, one of the early submissions of the project. I think there was only really 2 things that I had questions on, which was there was a request that we are using one of the new catch basin that's been installed in Sagamore, and there was a request for a fair use contribution. I just didn't know how that would be calculated, or if that's calculated prior to going to the planning board meeting, or what that would be, and then.
We'll get you an answer on that.
All right.
Don't have it with us.
And then Altus had one comment about, or they had more than one comment, but they had one comment that we were, I guess, wondering, we've dug an awful lot of test pits on the property. We have a couple test pits near an infiltration basin, and there's request that they're not quite close enough to the infiltration basin, and they wanted them additional ones to be installed. They're just off to the side, and we have, I'm looking at sheet C3, that basin that's down near the Tide Watch driveway. We have 3 test pits. We have 7, 8, and 10, all in the vicinity. And there was a request for one additional one in the middle. It seems like we've peppered the area with test pits. There's also test pit 9, which is just outside the limit of clearing. And I don't know, to do 5 test pits in such a small area seems excessive, but I presumed if the committee was to push us on to the planning board, then we'd have to just address all the comments to satisfaction. And I don't know if that's one that, if you feel comfortable that there's enough test pits in that area, then we'd be okay with that as well. If you say we got to satisfy Altus completely and do another test pit, we'll do that also. I just wanted to, before we get another machine out there and go out and dig another pit, where we literally have 4 pits in like a 30, 40-foot radius. It seems like we have a substantial amount. Then after that, I only have one other question, which if you want to, I can ask that. There's, on the condo site plan, which is the sheet just before this one, we were asked to add the condominium plan to the plan set, which this is it. And those are limited common area lines. And I think that we were requested to have those taken off the plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I
It's a
mean,
little confusing because they typically do have limited common areas with all.
we don't approve of limited common areas on condos like this because it creates a subdivision, basically. And so we call that an illegal subdivision. So what we've told people they can do is make the entire area a common area. If you want to organize space in your homeowner documents separately, that's acceptable, but
All right.
our legal department has taken the opinion that those are creating an illegal subdivision by dividing up that space away from the people that live in those condos, just for their exclusive use.
Right.
So that would have to be a subdivision.
All right, so do we remove the whole plan? Because that's really the only purpose of the condominium site plan is to.
Well, just showing the units, putting the units on there and the information that you've removed limited common, just where is the common area for everyone, I guess would be helpful to show. If it's one big lot that's all common, that's fine.
Yeah, typically, I mean, typically with most condos, the LCAs are their exclusive use, and then the area that's all white around that is the common area.
Yeah, I understand. A lot of communities do it that way, and just not here.
All right, well, we've done a bunch of them, and that's how we've done it in the past. That's why I was surprised you wanted the
Yep.
condo site plan at the early stage. But if we remove those lines, then there really is no need for the plan, in my opinion.
Well, then we-
Showing the
then-
physical location of the units on the common parcel.
Yeah, that's
We
important.
also have the site plan, though, that would be recorded, I presume.
Right, but it's not the condo plan. If the condo plan shows this, that's why we want to see it, so that we see that it doesn't have this.
All right.
That's what we're approving.
All right, we can remove them and deal with them in the condos documents
Yeah.
separately.
In the homeowner documents.
Right. That's all I have.
All right, any comments from TAC members?
I had a question about the stormwater. Did you address that? Leaving the site, it looks like there's a riprap outlet, or maybe it's not. Yeah, on the edge of the detention basin, looks like it comes off onto the property, but then it's pretty close to the property boundary. Is that going to stay on the property?
It doesn't. Eventually, it runs down that hill. There's a ditch line on the uphill side of the Tide Watch driveway. It catches that. Basically, all our stormwater from the site, well, the site's split in half, basically, so we're not quite half. There's a little bit of the front of the site that drains towards, right into Sagamore currently. And then once you get over the, past the midpoint of the existing buildings, the whole property slopes to the right side of the plan. And then Tidewatch has a curbed roadway. You can see some of the catch basins on their roadway, but they also have a ditch line that runs on the inside of that road, which brings stormwater from this site and partially from Sagamore. It used to be from Sagamore, but now you guys are changing the way Sagamore is built. But a lot of Sagamore used to drain down from the top of the hill all the way down that gutter line and into Tidewatch, which is being redirected now elsewhere. And then everything runs kind of down along the inside of their driveway and keeps going to a catch basin that they have in the ditch line that's almost at the top of that screen. Yeah, right on the other side of the road. There's it keeps going to where there's a mail, it's off-site, it's off our plan, but there's a mailbox kiosk, and that's where all that water basically ends up flowing, enters a catch basin, and then crosses their road and into their drainage system. So we're not keeping 100% of our stormwater on the site, we're reducing it below the existing flows, and that's the goal for stormwater, is you can't increase it, which is why we have that detention pond infiltration area. We have infiltration around the homes where we can. We have the front of the site still drains towards Sagamore, away from the Tidewatch development.
So it's a reduction in what's there today.
That's correct.
And it's not concentrated over here to make it, even though it's reduced overall, it's going to be concentrated over there.
So that stone wall acts as a natural ridge. It's Altus's opinion and mine as well that even though the stormwater is being released there, it's not going to cross the stone wall. It's going to follow. There's actually, if you look at the contours, you can actually see a swale line.
Yep.
So it's going to follow that swale line. I think the Altus letter speaks for itself. There's a number of things that we still don't agree on. I guess still need to be addressed before I'm going to be comfortable moving this on. But the biggest thing that Joe brought up was the test pit. And really, it's Altus's opinion and mine as well that once the trees are stripped off this site, there will be no natural soil left. Whatever soil is there is going to come out with the roots of the trees. So the applicant is claiming infiltration that I do not believe will actually occur. So that's the current issue with them claiming infiltration. The infiltration that they're showing around units 3 or 4 is because they're showing walkout basements. So they're actually bringing in soil. So that's probably could be accomplished if it was done carefully and correctly. There could be some infiltration around those 2 units, but the pond that they're showing probably won't have any infiltration realistically because it's all going to be just stripped out.
Down to ledge.
The roots. There's really no, I mean, that was the reason why we did the additional test pits. There is no soil there other than the forest mat that's going to be stripped right out when they pull the stumps. So that's the issue, really, is we're still not there with agreeing with them on the design.
Okay.
We do have a Musimeter testing in that area, and we did find sand. You know, the soils are variable. There's clearly ledge on the property. We also found some veins of sand, and so that was the area that we had better soils. We had the sand down in that area, which is why we're using the Musimeter to get the permeability of that, and then using that for our testing. And we did supply that information in the drainage report, but we can take that out so it's a little easier to find and send it as well. And if we have to do another test pit, it sounds like we should. do that then to make sure that we're all in agreement.
Now, if you find some deep sand somewhere, you let me know, but from what I saw, there's no soil there,
All right.
which is kind of misleading on your response, but that's what I saw. There's really, the reason why it's going to Group C is because there's no soil there to infiltrate. So that's my opinion, and I'm going to stick with it. So every time that you send me a drainage report back that says we're claiming infiltration, we're going to have issues.
All right. Sounds like another test pit's going to be warranted then. Get Eric in.
Yeah,
Dave to
that
look
sounds
at
like it.
And,
You don't need an AOT on this?
no, it's
Small?
too small.
Pat?
There was a question on no parking on the, how is that being resolved?
Along our driveway entrance? Or,
The drive in general?
yeah, there was a request to put up no parking, and we're fine with that along, I think it was from Sagamore to the first driveway. Typically, sometimes the whole road could be marked. It's hard to enforce.
A
but
fire
it's-
lane less than 26 feet would be no parking on either side. You could probably get away with no parking on the right side as you go in, either side. Per DPW, up to you, either one.
Yeah, so we're at 20 feet, so we could, at 20 feet, you're fine if we just do no parking on the whole drive entrance then, right? Or the whole driveway?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine with us, too.
Nowhere parking anywhere. There's construction as well, huh?
I'm not worried about construction. When it's finished.
All right, any other comments at this moment? Otherwise, open up for anyone want to make public comments. You could come to this chair on the end, state your name.
Good afternoon. My name's Tim McNamara. I'm a Portsmouth resident at 579 Sagamore Ave, number 19. There's a reason I state it that way. I'm a Portsmouth resident. I'm not just a person in a condo complex. So we all have our own concerns and considerations on this thing. First, I'd like to say thanks to this TAC committee for all their work. And the interaction even with the developer and the engineers, et cetera. But requesting a third-party review was something that we really appreciated. And then also I saw in the packet that maybe our state conservation entity had some kind of a review as well about the wetlands, just to make sure that we were taking care of those as we did, as Mary stated before, when we developed Tidewatch. I do have a question just about the folks that were here before. That 100 Bothwick, or however you say it, they came here first and then go to ZBA? Is that what they were doing?
We're not here to answer questions, but
Okay.
I can talk to you
Okay.
about that after.
All right. All right, then, if I'm just comments, let me get right to it then. While it may not be tax responsibility, I want to go on record about the things, some of which were just stated, and probably the most important one Dave just brought up about drainage. But TAC has in front of it a plan that's different than what the ZBA approved. And if we can't answer it here, that's fine too, but I'm really concerned about the material change in the placement of the units on the property as it relates not just to how we will be affected on, from a Tidewatch perspective, but also how the houses and units now land on that granite parcel and will impact drainage as well. So the original C2 showed the houses closest to the Tidewatch Road were 130 feet away. And then on the backside of the units that were along the road, they were 80 feet from the property line. Those are from the property lines. On the new C2, it's 96 feet and 65 feet, respectively. That is a material change, and again, a material change for what is trying to be accomplished from a drainage perspective as well. In the ZBA's approval, two of their answers, which weren't even accurate at the time, but two of their answers stated that you wouldn't even be able to see the properties from the road. That's not true for the folks that are across the street at Sagamore or from the folks that come out of the garden department or ourselves. And now, with the movement of those properties, there is no way those statements in the approval are accurate. In the addition of, somebody just mentioned too, a stone wall, a big retaining wall that is going in, wasn't on an original plan that any of us got to see. And now with those drainage basins, retaining basins, and which Peter brought up, the exit of one of those basins right on our property, and assuming the use of an already failing water system on our own property, it seems ludicrous that we could think that the engineering, the current engineering would work. And then again today, listening to Altus concern and Dave, how do I pronounce your name? Desfossis?
Close.
Sorry.
Okay.
But we too don't see how water will be retained on the property, which I thought was a requirement of anything, because otherwise it will adversely affect those around us, which is a requirement of the ZBA for approval. And then the other question that we really have for TAC and planning to consider, I guess, and for the developer, is the original units didn't have walkout basements, but now because they have to move the buildings because of the line of sight issue, which is still a problem. Everything I read says that we're still not in a place necessarily that satisfies line of sight, but they made an assumption that just because moving the buildings, they could put a walkout basement again in the face of their neighbors, which I think is a pretty bold assumption in that regard. And then just a question, again, can't necessarily be answered. Did TAC or planning give them suggestions of where to put the units or to put a walkout basement in the units? I'll switch to line of sight, again, which is a broad safety issue for anybody that travels that road, in car, on bike, on foot, etc. I appreciate the fact that the documentation is there between Eric and the engineering group, but it still seems to me that we're short a distance of stopping, and it's not for line of sight getting out of the driveway, because everybody can step on the gas and get out of the way. But to come over that hill and think that you're going to be able to stop in time with a car waiting to take a left into that driveway because they're trying to see the cars coming around from the other side, southbound on Sagamore. I see the math, and the math says that we're short. And if it doesn't approve for line of sight, we shouldn't approve it. But that's also from the middle of that driveway or access road, which technically it's an access road. That's from the middle of the road. And there's no way a car is going to be sitting at the middle of that road to take a left-hand turn. If you all pass driver's ed, you know that you're going to slow down ahead of time, you're going to make a left, or stand there to make your left before you go. So line of sight stopping distance, not to get out of the driveway, line of sight stopping distance is a huge issue. And then just to finish again from what we heard here, It just seems every time we come to one of these meetings that there's another issue. If you think about the common property lines of a condo complex, which we have, and went through that whole process. But if you can't have those condo lines there, it's starting to sound like a subdivision, which is something that shouldn't be approved on that site. And then finally, it just seems like we're over-engineering this whole thing, trying to, put something that is too big on a certain site. So again, we ask TAC to continue as you have done, to be really considerate about this and send the project back to the developer to come up with a different plan that might be more effective for all those around and safer for everybody that comes through that space. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up, sir.
My name is Kevin Lucer. I'm a Tidewatch resident. I guess I'm a Portsmouth resident, too. I want to thank the members of this committee for the time they put in, and I'll be very brief. I totally agree with Mr. McNamara's comments, and I think almost everybody in Tidewatch does agree with him. I know of nobody who's objected to his comments in any way. This project has met with a lot of negative reaction from Tidewatch residents, and I think it started out as a 5-building project, then it went to a 4. If they'd have started out with a 2-building project, they probably would not have had anywhere near the resistance that they had or have had. That's just my opinion. The other thing is, we have, and this may be inappropriate for this committee, I'm not sure, but we have zoning regulations, and I don't understand how, if we have these regulations, why they can be sort of just cast aside for a project where they're zoned for 1 building and go to 5 and then 4. And the Tidewatch residents that I talk to are totally against this project for the reasons that have been mentioned, and I totally agree that it should go back to the zoning board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon again. I'm Mary Fantrello, and I am a Portsmouth resident as well as a resident in Tidewatch in Portsmouth. And since you said earlier that you can't answer questions, let me pose several questions that need to be addressed from the point of view of 274 pages of stuff that I went bleary-eyed over. All right. But I will say thank you, all the guys, for coming up with questions, coming up with thoughts, getting direction, bringing in third parties, and generally trying to answer the many questions that go with this project. For the size of it, it's an outsized engineering project. Right now, while the drainage on the property is problematic to a degree, now that the town has redesigned the road and put in a catch basin, a fair amount of the water that came tumbling down the main driveway or main road of Tidewatch is going to be diverted. So we won't know exactly how that's going to affect the outflow down the road. But thinking about this, I don't know what the current hardscape that is there now, top buildings and driveway, not including the Severino things and stuff, how that amount with cellars and things that they proposed how the current hardscape compares to the proposed hardscape. Because that hardscape is nearer the road, it allows more trees there. The trees collect moisture. As soon as you start uprooting those trees, and from past experience, we at Tidewatch have had significant problems by uprooting trees. And I told you before, we spent, and I went back and I looked, we've spent over $1 million solving drainage problems at Tidewatch. So, keep in mind that they don't go away because of the first design. They continue as you try to change the topography, the permeability of the property. So knowing how the hardscapes compare and how much trees would be taken away will give you a much better idea of how much drainage needs to be managed. Once you take those trees away and you uproot, you totally increased the runoff from that property. The other thing, as I think Eric mentioned and Mrs. DeFas has mentioned earlier on about things, was the permeability there. Now, if that's the same ledge and so forth that is over 300 feet away on the top of the hill in Tidewatch, the permeability, there is no reasonable permeability there. We had to build swales around all buildings where there's that. So, where are the test pits about drainage on the side? I call it the upside. If you want to go to the plan. Can you bring the plan? So the ward units have managed to the number, but the side that is away from Tidewatch driveway, so I call it the upside, there is significant ledge there, and there's significant runoff there. How is that being accounted for? I don't see that there is grading or drainage or anything there that accounts for serious problem. And let me relate to you that it's kind of like a ravine there, and people were allowed to build years ago. Can't take back what we've got. We can't unsee things and unbuild them. But units on the little circle in Tidewatch had to have a remediation of close to $300,000 with more perimeter drains being put in, cisterns being built, and drainage being built under the water, under the roads, and past the sewer system to get out. And that's all the same slope, just down further on the road. So I couldn't accept a plan that doesn't account for significant runoff into that ravine, because that's Tidewatch property. All right? Then we were talking about parking, and no parking area. And I thank the city for reconstructing the road and putting in new sidewalks and curbing. But as I noticed the road as I came out today, and I took a special notice, and I forgot to take a picture. But now the road curves in front of that first individual house and up to where you put in the new cut for the driveway for this project. We have always had, in the wintertime, now I know climate change is here, but we can't say we won't have a bad winter. So the city of Portsmouth would come up Sagamore and plow. They'd get to where the Tidewatch driveway was, they'd kind of curve in. We have to plow our own roads. And they'd put a big pile of snow on the, if you're going facing out, on the right side, and they'd leave a big bunch of snow on the left side. And if we had a big snowstorm, you couldn't see over it. Now you're proposing to add another driveway in there where they're going to have to pick up the plow, go past the driveway, and then they're going to dump a big pile of snow on the other end of that curve in the road, slight curve, and now we're going to have more sightline problems. People coming out of Luster Cluster won't be able to see because there'll be a pile of snow. This happens every year that we have snow. So, I mean, I think we really need to, in all your planning, and I'm so glad parking and transportation is here. You know how many complaints you get in the wintertime about a plow left a 4-foot high snow. But that is a real danger. That is a real danger in that area. And then another silly question. But if this plan gets approved with still objections from abutters and Tidewatch and so forth, And it turns out that all our worries were quite right. And drainage starts coming down, and we have all our trees are falling down because they've blasted out too many. Again, this has happened in the area. What is our recourse with the town? For approving a project that wasn't thoroughly vetted and researched, and all things taken into consideration, and therefore the town devalues our property and endangers our property. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? No one on Zoom. So we'll close the public comment portion. Additional comments from TAC members?
I have one question. I don't know if I can.
Sure.
One of the comments was about a 25 mile per hour advisory sign in blind driveway. Do you have a location that you want us to put that sign on Sagamore?
That would be as you're coming up the hill. You know, we'd have to look and see exactly where that would be, but you'd want to get at least a couple hundred feet in advance of the driveway. Give people a chance to react and slow down.
All right, that's perfect. And we'll show it and we'll say to be coordinated,
Yeah.
with you guys, and if you want it slightly changed.
Jonathan?
So they're coming back here anyway until lots of issues are resolved, not going to the planning board yet. And I disagree with Dave, I mean, because at the end of it all, when these homes are built, I am left dealing with so many drainage issues. This happens time and time again, not just in Portsmouth, but in other municipalities that I've worked in. And at the time, the engineering was put forth, supposedly executed and inspected by a third party, and then it either fails or it was under-designed, and then we're dealing with, usually my office first, and then DPW, and then, ultimately litigation and lots of money spent after the fact. So I just echo what Dave said. I want to make sure that, that the engineering is very, very sound, and everyone in the city is comfortable with it before we move it along to the building permit stage.
Good point.
Yeah.
Any other comments or motion?
I would just make a comment about sight lines at the driveway. We can't deny access to a parcel based on sight lines, because then it's a taking of property. Ideally, you would prohibit left turns in and out of this site, but that's very hard to do. Just putting a sign saying no left turns people don't obey a sign. Unless you can physically restrict the left turns, you're going to have them. Physically restricted, it means, a median island in the middle of Sagamore Ave. And that's just not realistic. Or, building the driveway so that you couldn't possibly make a left turn physically, but that's very hard to do. So, the sight lines are an issue. They always will be an issue. But, we don't have the ability to prohibit access to a lot. And there's valid concerns about sightline issues, but, vehicle waiting to turn in, as mentioned. Come over the crest of that hill and you see someone, it's going to be difficult to stop. So I just want to be on record saying that, signs is what we can do, but it's not going to be an ideal situation.
Any other comments?
So do you guys know what you need for drainage to get?
Yeah, Altus's letter is pretty clear, and I think I was just pretty clear. I don't
Yep.
agree with the drainage design at this point.
Yep.
And I'm not comfortable with it at all. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Well, then I'd recommend we postpone to the next month's TAC meeting to hopefully get a chance to look at better drainage design with a better understanding of the drainage. Or maybe a change.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. We'll postpone to the October meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Do we postpone one or do?
Well, yeah, I said at the beginning. That concludes our business today. We are adjourned.